Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janava Girivaratari Jaya Gopi Janava Girivaratari Dasara Nandana Dasara Nandana Ramunatira Chari Ramunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya So we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 3rd chapter, text 21. Para Param Tata Kritita Justam Api Uttamangam Na Namin Mukundam Savo Karo No Kurute Sapyayam Harir Dasat Kanchana Kankanova Para Param Pata Kritita Justam Api Utadman Gamna Namin Mukundam Sarvakarna Krute Samaryam Sakanchana Kankanova Param Pata Kritita Justam Api Uttamagam Namane Mukundam Savo Karona Kurte Samaryam Hare Lasat Kanchana Kankanova Para param pata kritita justam. Api utatmadam namane makundam. Savakarana kurte samaryam. Hare sakanchana kankanova.
Para parampata kirita jushtam.
Para parampata kritita justam.
Abhyutamangam nanamen mukundam.
Apiyutamangam namamin makundam.
Shavakara kurute sapayam.
Savakarana kurte samaryam.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova.
Para padang pata kiri jushna
Para parampata kritita justam.
apyutaman gang nana men mukundam
Apiyutamangam namamin makundam.
Shavakaran kurte sapayam
Savakarana kurte samparyam.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova.
Para param pata karita jushtam
Para parampata kritita justam.
apyutaman gam nanamin mukundam
Apiyutamangam namamin makundam.
Save karuna karute sapayam
Savakarana kurte saparyam.
Hare rasa kanchana kankanava
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova.
Param param bhatta kirita jushtam
Para parampata kritita
Abhyutamangam nanamin mukundam
Apiyutamangam namamin makundam.
Shavo karano kurte saparyam
Savakarana kurte saparyam.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanava
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova. So that was everyone. Did everyone
No.
chant?
I still got to. Para parampata kirita justam
Para parampata kriti justam.
apyutamangam nanamin
Apiyutamangam namamin makundam.
shavakam kurte sapayam
Savakarana kurte saparyam.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova.
Para param pata kirita justam
Para parampata kriti justam.
Abhyutamangam nanaman makundam
Atme atmagam namamin makundam.
Shavao kalo no kalute spayayam
Savakarana kurte saparyam.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova.
Para parampata kirita justam
Para parampata kritita justam.
Api uttamang mangam nanamin mukundam
Apiyutamangam namamin makundam.
Shavau karo no kurute sapadyam
Savakarana kurte saparyam.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanava
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova.
Para parampata kirita justam
Para parampata kritita justam.
Abhyutamangam nanamen makundam.
Apyutamangam namamin makundam.
Shavakaro no kurute saparyam.
Savakaro no kurute sapayam.
Hare lasad kanchana kankanova.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova.
Para parampata kirita justam.
Para parampata takriti kristam.
Abhyutamangam naname mukundam.
Apyutamangam namamin makundam.
Savokaro no kurute sapayam.
Savakaro no kurute sapayam.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova.
Hare lasat kanchana kankanova. Okay, so that's everyone. Everyone's chanted. Okay, so we'll chant the word by word synonyms. Para, a great burden. Param, heavy. Pata, silk. Kritita, turban. Justam, dressed with. Api, even. Uttama, upper. Angam, parts of the body. Na, never. Namit, bow down. Mukundam, Lord Krishna, the deliverer. Salvo, dead bodies. Karo, hands. No, do not. Kurute, do. Saparyam, worshiping. Hare, or the personality of Godhead. Lasat, glittering. Kanchana, made of gold. Kankano, bangles. Va, even though. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhagavatam Swami Srila Prabhupada. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead Hari. As stated herein before, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotee does not at all see anyone who is not in the service of the Lord. But the second class devotee makes distinctions between devotees and non-devotees. The second class devotees are therefore meant for preaching work, and as referred to in the above verse, they must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. The second class devotee accepts disciples from the section of third class devotees or non-devotees. Sometimes the first class devotee also comes down to the category of the second class devotee for preaching work. But the common man who is expected to become at least a third class devotee is advised herein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity, even though he may be a very rich man or even a king with a silk turban or crown. The Lord is the Lord of everyone, including the great kings and emperors. And men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple of Lord Sri Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity. The Lord in the temple in the worshipful form is never to be considered to be made of stone or wood, for the Lord is in his Archa incarnation as the deity in the temple shows immense favor to the fallen souls by his auspicious presence. By the hearing process, as mentioned herein before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. As such, the first process in the routine work of devotional service, hearing, is the essential point. Hearing by all classes of devotees from the authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. The common man who is puffed up with this material position and does not bow down before the deity of the Lord in the temple, or who defies temple worship without any knowledge of the science, must know that his so-called turban or crown will only succeed in further drowning him in the water of the ocean of material existence. A drowning man with a heavy weight on his head is sure to go down more swiftly than those who have no heavy weight. A foolish, puffed up man defies the science of God and says that God has no meaning for him. But when he is in the grip of God's law and is caught by some disease like cerebral thrombosis, the godless man sinks into the ocean of nescience by the weight of his material acquisition. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society, and so one must take heed of this great warning. The common man, if he has no time to worship with the Lord, may at least engage his hands for a few seconds in washing and sweeping the Lord's temple. Maharaj Prataparudra, the greatly powerful king of Orissa, was always very busy with heavy state responsibilities. Yet he made it a point to sweep the temple of Lord Jagannath at Puri once a year during the festival of the Lord. The idea is that however important a man may be, he must accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. This God consciousness will help a man even in his material prosperity. Maharaj Prataparudra's subordination before Lord Jagannath made him a powerful king, so much so that even the great Pathan in his time could not enter into Orissa on account of the powerful Maharaj Prataparudra. And at last, Maharaj Prataparudra was graced by Lord Sri Chaitanya on the very grounds of his acceptance of subordination to the Lord of the universe. So even though a rich man's wife has glittering bangles made of gold on her hands, she must engage herself in rendering service to the Lord. So this is a really nice verse and purport. Yeah, these are some key verses spoken by Sanaka Rishi. The previous verse, how society is just nothing but a polished animal society. And now the burden on the head is only a burden if such a person doesn't bow down before the deity of the Lord. And so Prabhupada was saying that the turban, the silk turban, this means a king. And he says, here you see in our temples, we have our deities, we decorate the deities with turbans. So he's the Supreme Lord. So whenever he wears a turban, even though it's a silk turban, he said that's a sign of a king. So he's saying the kings in the stately order shouldn't be so puffed up as to not think that they have to bow down their heads before the deity or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Into today's society, and this is the reason why the Brahmanas, they wanted to kill who was that, King Vena. He all of a sudden proclaimed himself to be God. He stopped all the sacrificial worship and stopped the fire, and he was restricting the Brahmanas' actions. And so they're consulting with King Vena, and King Vena himself, he blatantly said, claimed that he is the Supreme Lord. Basically, that's what king means: king or the ruler, the statesman. He's a representative of the Lord, so he should carry out the order of the Lord and see that everyone is engaged. Everyone is engaged nicely in devotional service. Like that. So Prabhupada uses the verse Saivai Mana Krishna Pada Vindayo, is always thinking of the Lord, tasting the Tulsi leaf offered to the Lord, walking to the temple, Jai Gauranitai Ki Jai. As this is Maharaj Ambarish, he utilized all of his senses. So he used his eyes for seeing the deity of the Lord, and used his hands in washing the floor of the temple of the Lord, cleaning the temple. He used his time for tasting the Tulsi and prasadam and speaking about the Lord. So Prabhupada was saying in this way, all of our senses are all utilized in chanting, in hearing, especially the tongue and the ear, especially hearing. And Prabhupada was stating here that hearing is very important. That you hear about how the deity is the Archa Vigraha, and it's not to be considered to be made of stone or wood or paint. Daru Brahman, Lord Jagannath's made of wood, so it's referred to as Daru Brahman. Like that, but it's directly to the Supreme Lord who's graced us to agree to become the Archer Vigraha and to accept our worship and prayers in the temple, to accept our devotional service. So we're that fortunate that He's graced us with that. And so Prabhupada was talking about how everyone and everything is prakriti or nature. So Prabhupada was saying, so if woman, she wants to now become man, so she dressed like man. Does that mean that woman, she's now become a man because she dressed like the man? So Prabhupada was saying the same way, we're all prakriti, we're all nature. And the actual only real Purusha, the enjoyer, is actually Krishna. So the so-called statesmen or puffed up rich persons, even though they have the silk turban or the signs of a king or ruler, they themselves are trying to become the Purusha. But just in the same way, if the woman dressed like the man, so if the man with the turban, he's puffed up and he thinks that he's the Purusha, he's the enjoyer. Does that mean that that makes him actually the supreme enjoyer? Actually, it's artificial, just in the same way. So Prabhupada was using that example and analogy. And so he was saying that Maharaj Pachapuruja, he was sweeping the floor of the temple of Lord Jagannath in Jagannath Puri and Rath Yatra once a year. So that made him a powerful king. So, and at last he was graced by Lord Chaitanya. Basically, Lord Chaitanya, he went to see King Pachapuruja. King Pachapuruja wanted to see Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya was very renounced sannyasi, and he doesn't meet with kings or rich persons. He was very, very strict. Even though he's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but that was only displayed intimately with his intimate associates. To everyone else, he claimed that he is not God, he is not Krishna. But he approved of this verse. It was on one of the leaves in the hut in Rupa Goswami's place where he stayed in his hut, and it was the verses. Is that Lord Chaitanya's most magnificent incarnation? I'm trying to think of the Sanskrit.
Namo Mahavananaya.
Yeah, Namo Mahavananaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishna Chaitanya, Namane Gaurta Namaha. Yeah, thank you very much for that. So Lord Chaitanya, he approved of this verse. We chant this verse every day when we offer prasadam. So Lord Chaitanya, he accepted this verse and approved of it. So, but in other places where Lord Chaitanya, he wouldn't use, it was a very, very expensive sandalwood oil. He was thinking that the sandalwood oil, the money for the sandalwood oil could be better used for preaching Krishna consciousness. He's a sannyasi, renounced. It's not his place to have sandalwood oil anointed on his body. And he specifically was adamant that he is not the Supreme Lord, he's not Krishna. Like that. So he wouldn't see King Pachapuruja, but King Pachapuruja's son would come to see Lord Chaitanya. And so Lord Chaitanya was gracing King Pachapuruja's son. He was coming by and intimately associating with Lord Chaitanya on a spiritual basis. But Lord Chaitanya was very pleased to see King Pachapuruja with the broom, taking the humble position and sweeping the road, even though he's a great king. So Prabhupada was saying here in the purport here that's what made. Oh yeah, and at last he did allow King Pachapuruja to, I believe, massage Lord Chaitanya's legs like that. So this is our place, our position, to take the humble position, not to claim yourself as the Purusha, and supreme majority that we're all prakriti, and no matter how big a person is in their estimation in the material world, they should. It's all just a bunch of zeros. They're just simply the animals, the hogs, dogs, camels, and asses that were mentioned in the previous verse. Oh, the dog, he gets the votes by the other dog, so he's voted biggest dog. And then it's bow wow, what are you coming here for? Go away. We don't want you. We don't like that. And then what was it? Prabhupada was mentioning this in a lecture that we had listened to, is that there was a dog, he had some foodstuffs in his mouth, and he was in the river, and he saw the reflection of himself, but he thought it was another dog. And what a dog will do, he'll give up his own to take away from the mouth of another dog. So he let go of what he had in his mouth and tried to take what the other dog had, but it was only so simply as a reflection. So then he tried to find and recover what he had, and it was lost. He lost it. It was lost in the currents of the river. So the foolish dog, he gave up and lost what he had in his mouth to try to take the same foodstuffs from another dog. So this is just the doggish mentality. And so it's mentioned how persons, they're a dog, or how they're a hog. Yeah, indiscriminate sex life, just anywhere, they're not saying, but it even then it's like, well, they're just an animal, it's just a dog. They're not expected to have to follow the rules or laws. Like if the dog walks across the street on a red light, nobody chastises the dog, but if the man, he walks against the red light, he'll get a traffic ticket. He'll get a ticket. He'll have to go to court and pay a fine, like that. So there's the doggish mentalities, and then the hog is also the indiscriminate sex. He'll have sex with his sister, his mother, his anyone, and then they'll eat anything, even abominable stools, and the refuge. We used to get all the bad produce that they were throwing away. We used to take that and use it to feed our pigs. That's where we had some pigs like that. And so, yeah, they eat anything. They're standing way up to the tops of their legs in mud. It was mud and big giant watermelon rinds and honeydew melon rinds, cantaloupe. Whatever, was kind of left over, kind of saved for later in the mud and the stool. And it was all over their face and the sand and everything. So this makes them happy. This is their enjoyment, is their mud hole. It's just abominable. It smelled really bad. But this is their enjoyment. And so then there's the person who acts like that, eats anything abominable and lives in any kind of conditions, then he's considered as a hog. People that are engaging in incest, they're going to take birth as a hog or a pig in their next life. So there's a training up process in the hellish planets that's not so nice. Here's some nice running stool. You can't leave until you eat this. That's pretty bad. I think I'd probably be there for a long time. I don't think I'd be able to get around to that, but I guess they're forced, and then they develop the taste of a pig to become a pig in their next life. So then there was the camel. The camel, he eats the chewy or the thorny twigs, and they cut his tongue and the inside of his mouth, and it flows with the blood. And he thinks that this is really potable, the taste of the dry twigs and and thorns with the blood mixed together, that this is really nice. It's very palatable taste to the camel. So the foolish camel, he does this repeatedly. He cuts the inside of his mouth with the sharp thorny twigs, and he enjoys it. And and the beast of burden, the asses. The beast of burden is considered a lowly animal because a washerman, he's a lowly kind of a person, and he loads the donkey really, really high with laundry. I mean, a really big load, and they know how to tie it on there really good too. But it's a really big high load on the donkey, and the donkey, he carries this really big, high, heavy load, and he has grass everywhere on the side of the road, but he thinks that he's working so hard that the washerman's going to give him a little bit of grass. They take a carrot and put it on a string and hold it out in front of the donkey. So the donkey thinks, one more step, I'll have the carrot. One more step, I'll have the carrot. So he's trying to get the carrot. One more step, and try to get the carrot. So that's like we're trying to think that just one more step, we're going to achieve our goal. We'll be rich. We'll be the Purusha. One more step, we'll finish our goals. I'll enjoy it. One more step like that, but we never get there. You don't really get the real enjoyment we're looking for. We're Anandamaya Bhyasat, pleasure seeking by nature, but that pleasure can only actually really be achieved when we realize aham brahmasmi, that we're not the material body, but that we're the eternal spiritual soul. Their natural constitution is rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not trying to enjoy the material world independently on our own, vainly. There was an example how the hand can't enjoy the foodstuffs. All the parts of the body, Prabhupada talks about this. They all got together and said, hey, how come we're supplying the foodstuffs to the stomach? We should enjoy the foodstuffs. We're giving it all to the stomach. What for? Right? So the hand wants to enjoy it themselves. The eyes wants to enjoy it. But everybody but the stomach now. Right? But they're starting to get weak. The senses were getting weak, and starvation is starting to set in. They're going, well, maybe we really can't enjoy this ourselves. Maybe we have to give it to the stomach. That's the process. Otherwise, we're getting weak and we're going to dwindle and die if we just don't feed the stomach then. So all the sense, they all agreed, yes, that's the process. So they all serve the stomach, give the foodstuffs to the stomach. Otherwise, they're going to dry up and die. So that's how Krishna is the root of all existence. So if we water the roots, and all the leaves and twigs and branches, they'll all flourish. So if Krishna, by the watering process of devotional service, engaging in devotional service to Krishna, then that's taking care of all of the watering process to the whole entire universe and to all the living entities, and purifies ourselves. And that's the constitutional position. The actual enjoyment with Krishna, not suffering vainly in 8,400,000 species of predatory life in the material world. One living entity as food for another is the rule of this world. Right? So it's an unpleasant situation, always in fear. But I believe for Prabhupada Maharaj, he also mentions this too. You see the birds, they're hopping away from you. You know what I mean? They're hopping away from you and fly up at the tree. The squirrel's running. They're all the animals, the mouse, you see a little mouse, and he's running away from you. They're constantly in fear. Please don't hurt me. See the little bunny, he runs and hides, and he's breathing really quickly, and he's looking to see if, because you come a little further, he's going to hop and run, into another little bush, and, like that. So Jai Gauri Jai Ki Jai. So all the animals, they're all fearful condition, that at any moment someone will come and eat them. A bigger bear, it gets the sound or, like that bigger animal. So, were there any questions or comments? Do you have a question?
When I was doing the food cart in Hawaii at Manoa University, and those were kind of long days, some days. And we're driving home, and my friend says, "Hey, I got some ice cream." It's like, "Oh, cool." Then we get back to the temple and we go to the walk-in freezer, and he pulls out the ice cream. And as soon as he pulls it out, a senior devotee walks around the corner and he looks at the ice cream and he says, "Haagen-Dazs." He says, "Did you read the label on that ice cream?" He says, "It has eggs. It's more like hogs and dogs."
Yeah, we make our own ice cream. We know it. Yeah, hogs and dogs, not Haagen-Dazs. Hogs and dogs ice cream. Hogs and dogs. That's a good one. A good way to put that. Any other questions or comments? Or maybe we can end class there then. Srimad Bhagavatam class, Ki Jai.